Okay, stop and start again.
Well, no, because I could cut it.
Okay, fair enough.
Right.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of What's the Point, the show where we discuss varying forms of media, and occasionally we actually get round to discussing what's the point. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm joined as ever by our co-host, Matt.
Hello.
Before we get started today, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and rate this video in whichever way you see fit, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon for future updates. Content. And if you're feeling extra generous, go ahead and share us on your social media platform of choice. And if you don't use social media these days, I don't blame you, and good for you.
It's because it's a cesspool.
Well, and life as we know it right now is quite depressing, so it's good to just keep yourself away from that kind of thing. But please share us.
Share us.
Anyways, enough of laughing at ourselves. Aren't we hilarious? What's the point of discussion for today, Matthew?
So today we're going to broach the topic of fan service. Basically, is it used too much? Is it not used enough? When is its uses suitable and actually benefit the product? And when it's used to the detriment? So first off, what's the definition of fan service, Michael?
Well, it's an interesting definition, because if you go back far enough, you find it has its roots in anime and sex.
That's the kind of fan service I like.
So Wikipedia's definition here is fan service or service cut is material in work of fiction or in fictional series which is intentionally added to please the audience, often sexual in nature. Now, we're obviously not going to be discussing it in that context. I actually found a Urban Dictionary, which I love this website. If you haven't gone to urbandictionary.com, by all means, go there. It's quite a laugh. Their definition is pretty straightforward. In general, fan service refers to scenes designed to excite or titillate the viewer.
Yeah. I feel very titillated at times.
Yeah. There's other definitions if you want me to go through them.
No, let's jump straight into the topic. There's been recently lots of movies that come out, and I'm going to go straight to my go-to, where people say fan service ruined the film, and that's The Rise of Skywalker. They say that was basically a Reddit script.
Hold on. It's been 2 weeks, and already we're talking Star Wars again.
Man, we have problems. But yeah, the concept there was people were saying that because of the fans' reactions to The Last Jedi, Lucasfilm panicked and took everything that all fans were saying on Reddit, smashed it all together to make a script, and we all know how it turned out. It was a steaming hot pile of dung. But do we believe that was down to fan service? I don't think it was.
Yes and no. Probably the reaction and backlash to the fan service from the previous film, and then the previous film before that. Because, I mean, let's face it, The Force Awakens itself was just an entire... It was Star Wars Episode 7 fan service.
Well, yeah, it was a homage to Episode 4.
So what I think we ought to do is take the premise of our show, for instance, and apply it to to fan service. Ask that question: what's the point? Now, to me, fan service is it's meant to be in service to the fans. Obviously, not meant to be in service to the plot. However, if you really want it to fit and to work for not just the fans, but also people who are new to your franchise or to your media, you need to find a middle ground.
Has to be organic.
Yeah, and so to me, in order for it to be organic and to find that nice middle ground, you need to acknowledge the fans, but not get too bogged down in it. Because if you get too bogged down in your fan service, you're not just acknowledging the fans, you're now pandering to them, you're bowing down to them, and you're sacrificing the integrity of your art, of your craft, just to appease a fan base.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is, if used correctly, fan service can actually enhance an end product, but then if it's used incorrectly or too much, you get bogged down in the quagmire of pandering to fans. And we know lots of franchises that do that.
Well, don't get me wrong. It's not necessarily a bad thing to pander to fans either. Now, I might be contradicting myself slightly here, but like I say, it's trying to find that Goldilocks zone when it comes to using this, because you have to be careful. Ultimately, at the end of the day, fans they're not a single entity.
No.
Some fans like one thing, some fans hate that. Some fans like this thing, these fans don't. There's no ultimate authority for what fans of any particular franchise thinks is good or bad. However, if you take, for instance, this most recent Star Wars situation, what did we have? The greatest thing since sliced bread? Luke Skywalker showing up in The Mandalorian to save the day.
And we both have different
we have different
opinions
opinions of it, but there's one thing that we can really get into as a sort of caveat to the conversation. One thing that we can both come out and say that we do not accept and we do find as unacceptable, and that is, well, I mean, this is your baby. You've done the research here.
Oh.
We know. We've watched the reaction videos. I just want to go on record and say, when I was seeing that Luke Skywalker scene, I was just conflicted. I was like, okay, this is cool. It's kind of badass. I'm getting chills and all that stuff. But I was wondering at the time as well, how is this kind of affecting the story I was watching, the show I was watching? I was conflicted.
So are you saying that the appearance of Luke at the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian was fan service?
100%.
So, okay, then let's just discuss that a little bit then. If their ultimate plan was to have Grogu move on from The Mandalorian so that the show can concentrate on The Mandalorian and what we think is going to go on Mandalorian Season 3, how do you get Grogu out of the season without killing him off, obviously?
If you absolutely had to do it in this season, well, the way they did it was fine. I feel like if I was the director, now if I was the director and the writer, I probably wouldn't have used the CGI Luke. I would probably have just hired a new actor for the split scene, for the split moment we're going to see him on screen. We didn't need him, and then on top of that, I almost feel like we didn't need all of that live action footage of Luke storming the ship, chopping robots up left, right, and center with his green lightsaber. What we could have had. And it does happen to some degree. We could have had our heroes from the show. Let's not forget about our heroes. We could have had them watching the footage, the security feeds of Luke plowing through all these things, and we don't actually see him on screen until he walks in through the door with that green lightsaber out, and then he takes it off, puts it on his belt, reveals who he is, and then they could have continued it from that point on.
So we both agreed that the use of fan service there was both good, but they may have just slightly gone over that precipice that we were talking about.
No, we don't agree that it was good. We agree that it works.
See, I loved it. Like, I could tell you my reaction. Again, we've watched all the reaction videos of people that were watching it live, and we both have our strong feelings on reaction videos as a whole.
We could talk for hours and hours and hours about this, and we'll probably get into that later on in the video.
And honestly, I think reaction videos, I like them if they're genuine. Very hard to tell when they're genuine. Some are staged. But we both agree that if Grogu was going to be taken out at the end of Mandalorian, he'd be taken out.
A Jedi needed to show up to take him away.
And there was no one better to use than Luke Skywalker.
And that's another discussion, if you ask me. Because you could have had anyone.
You could have had anyone, but this is where I believe that fan service is as well. Star Wars was created, and it was about 3 people. One of them, unfortunately, is dead. The other one had a really good send-off in Force Awakens. But from my point of view, we never really got that moment for Luke. As I said, The Last Jedi's grown on me. So if it is just going to be this 10-minute segment at the end of The Mandalorian, and we never see Luke again, I think fan service was used.
But it's not Luke's story.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's just a 10-minute sequence at the end of one episode. Luke Skywalker's had less airtime than Bill Burr's character.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's a 10-minute segment. It gives us what we were all wanting to see Luke like, and then we'll never see it again.
So then why is it necessary at all based on that?
Because, like you were saying, it's not to appease the fans. It's to give the fans what didn't get what they wanted from Last Jedi. They
Well,
got, and you can see that in the
we're getting a little bogged down in this. This was supposed to be a brief introduction.
But you can see though from all the reaction videos we've seen, we've not seen many reaction videos of people going, "Well, that was shit."
Yeah, but you see, I don't understand all of this grown men crying stuff. Like, I get it. Emotions are a thing. We're emotional beings. And that being said, now let's go on to this thing you've been discussing.
Yeah.
Because like I say, even though I don't particularly care for reaction videos and seeing grown men cry over their childhood dreams, I'm not going to begrudge someone that.
No.
That's just my personal opinion.
And just to set the scene, if you don't know what we're on about, I'm sure you probably do because it's actually quite big news. There's a YouTuber out there called Star Wars Theory. I subscribe to him. Michael subscribes to him. The guy creates some excellent content. He did a fan film about Darth Vader. And admittedly, I think it's only something like 15 minutes long, but it's still 15 minutes better than anything that was in Attack of the Clones or Rise of Skywalker. And this is a fan-made film. So the guy is obviously mega passionate about Star Wars.
And he's also very, like, grounded, too. He's not like, complete insane super fan or anything. He's got a lot of integrity,
and some of his and most of his content is very well thought out of, well put across discussions about Star Wars. And again, he's come out in a lot of his videos about how Star Wars helped him get through cancer. He was a 6-year-old kid when he was first watching Luke Skywalker.
He's, for all intents and purposes, he deals with his passion like a Jedi does.
What? Completely
No, like he's very calm and collected about it. Because you can be passionate about something, but you can be overly passionate about something. Like to the point where you live and breathe it, and that to me is a little bit unhealthy.
Basically, what happened?
Star Wars Theory is not like
no.
That. He's a good lad, and and as you say, you enjoy his content. I enjoy his content, and so
I think he's a Canadian guy as well. I think he's a good Canadian guy. So basically, he did a reaction of him watching the last episode of The Mandalorian live. And again, then we were saying earlier, with reaction videos, some of them I think are really staged. I don't think they're real, but I trust his integrity, and I think he was watching. And he got really emotional. He started crying. And like you say, movies do that to people, and they do it in lots of different ways. I can just listen to the Hobbit theme from Lord of the Rings and get emotional. I don't even have to be watching the show. Just hearing that music, I get goosebumps. And same with Binary Stars. Music affects me a lot more than actual visual stuff. The music from movies,
art in general, is a side effect of the human condition.
It's an emotional medium.
Yeah, you could be looking at a painting that moves you in the same way. Art is meant to make you feel something.
Yeah. So him getting overly emotional on it, he was doing his live stream, he was reacting live. No problem with it. Fine. If he wanted to cry over seeing what he thought Luke Skywalker should have looked like after the Return of the Jedi, which he never got with, that is awesome. That's his raw reaction. What is completely unacceptable though is anyone, and I'm going to state anyone, bullying or berating someone for having truly emotional reactions. Bullying in general is a big no-no.
Well, who are we talking about here?
So basically what we're talking about is, the reason I want to say anyone is because I actually want to put it even more so than anyone bullying.
Just call him out directly to the camera.
Is a figurehead of Lucasfilm, Pablo Hidalgo. The guy is high up in Lucasfilm, and he came on Twitter and he said, emotions are not for sharing.
That was the exact tweet?
That was his tweet. Emotions are not for sharing.
Let me check my notes real quick. He's right.
Yes.
Like, so can I be the first one to discuss that?
Just before you go to that, I just want to say though, saying emotions are not for sharing is probably one of the stupidest comments you can say.
Well, it's ridiculous because talk about contradictions. Like, what is he saying? Are we supposed to be Vulcans? Are we robots? Like, of course, of course, emotions are for sharing. It'd be like a question in, what is it, Family Feud?
With Steve?
Yeah, you turn around. The question is, what are emotions not for? Our survey says sharing.
No.
Of course emotions are for sharing. What a stupid thing to say.
It is a ridiculous thing. What are people struggling from at the moment around the world with coronavirus and lockdown is spending time with people that they love and sharing their emotions with them.
He's just bitter. That's people love this.
That is the one thing that it came off to me. But to make it even worse, he didn't just put out this one tweet and then that be it. Oh, no. Like any dumb fuck who thinks he's so right, he doubled down. He took the tweets that were being bounced backwards forward. First off, he blocked Star Wars Theory, so he couldn't. So that is a cowardly thing to do.
Oh, everybody does that on Twitter. You call someone out, you swear at them, and then you block them and run away. Oh, you can't talk to me now.
But he blocked him and then kept calling him out behind his back. What a coward!
Yeah.
So Star Wars Theory had to get what was going on from people he knew who weren't blocked. He then put the tweet about sharing the emotions as his Twitter banner. It's like complete doubling down on, rather than going, oh, fuck, I said something really stupid there. No, I'm going in up to the elbow.
Well, he went on the defensive.
Yeah, he got very defensive about it.
A lot of people do that. I mean, you talk about The Mandalorian. I believe it was the lady who plays Cara Dune, the MMA fighter. What's her name?
Oh, yeah, Gina Carano.
She on Twitter. Fucking Twitter, man.
Cesspool again.
Follow me on Twitter at FT.
I figured out what Twitter is. Twitter is the Mos Eisley of social media.
Yeah.
Scum and villainy.
A wretched hive of scum and villainy. But come and follow me on Twitter, though. I promise you I won't cyberbully you. But don't cyberbully me, though. I have to say, so I wrote my notes down because I didn't do any research on this Pablo Hidalgo fiasco as I've written here. But to me, like, I'll make fun of people reacting because I just think the concept of reaction videos is silly. I'm not going to attack the person behind it for having a visceral reaction to something or for feeling. That's just, as I wrote, these are my notes. The first things I thought of when you told me about it, out of order. Not even brushing on the topic. He's completely ignoring the issue. It's just bullying. And I wrote it down, and when you told me what the tweet was, emotions are not for sharing. And look, I'm not lying. First thing I thought was, ouch.
Yeah.
Like, that is just a horrible thing to say to someone.
The worst thing about it was he was given time to retract his statement, reach out, apologize, like a real man does.
I forgot to mention, though, because we went on a tirade about Twitter.
Yeah, go.
The lady who plays Cara Dune, she got in trouble for making fun of pronouns of the use, so on Twitter. I'm not sure if you know because you don't really use it that much, but especially with our modern day understanding of transgender and whatnot, people are trying to get Twitter users to display their pronouns, their preferred pronouns, which is fine. That way.
Oh, yeah, so like he, she, they.
So if you want to be addressed as he or him, you write in your Twitter profile he, him, and
Gina Carano
decided to make fun of that. And she put in like beep boop like she identifies as a droid, and she got a lot of backlash from it. And I think we discussed this off camera earlier, but you said she probably thought that was pretty funny.
In her head, she probably thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and when she got a bunch of backlash from it, rather than turning around and being like, "Oh, shit,
humble about it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend. I was just joking around, and I retract my statement, and I'll try to be more sensitive going forward." Instead of that, no. What did she do? She got all defensive. Doubled down and continued to, die on that hill.
Well,
that's where the segue was.
Yeah.
So Pablo Hidalgo himself chose that hill to die on.
And then today, I think it was, or yesterday, came out an apology from Hidalgo, which Star Wars Theory doesn't go into detail, but basically says it felt hollow. And whenever I see any instance like this, Lucasfilm also came out and made a statement, and he basically said, "Oh, you took it the wrong way. I was making a sarcastic joke at myself." I'm like, nah.
That's like kind of an apology, but not going far enough. It's like when somebody says sorry, but anything that comes after the but when you apologize basically nullifies the apology.
What it felt like was Lucasfilm's publicity department were on overload and like, shit, we got to get ahead of this.
Damage control.
And told him what to say. And it happens all the time whenever sports stars, movie stars, politicians, they do something dumb. The people that above these guys that control them, so the team, the studios,
They tell them.
They basically tell them, and that person don't give a shit. He doesn't want to apologize. He probably still thinks it's really fucking funny. Because, like you said, it comes across with him saying that is he's a little butthurt that he was in control of the story arc for the new Star Wars, put out some standalone films and a sequel trilogy, which by general standards is panned universally, that the sequel trilogy and the standalone films are not very good.
I beg to differ on that. I just think you guys are a fucking vocal minority.
No, by I mean panned. I'm not saying that the complete garbage, but in the Star Wars world, they're the weaker of the films.
I'd rather watch Force Awakens than any of the prequels.
No, Revenge of the Sith, man. I think he's butthurt that these two guys have come along, that he probably sees in his head, oh, these guys just fucking make cartoons. And I've come along and done a live-action series that is better than anything he's put to film.
Well, let me create this scene. What it is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are like, we're going to have this amazing scene where Luke Skywalker shows up and he cuts everything down and blah, blah, blah. There's going to be people all over the internet reacting and crying to these videos. You'll see. And Pablo Hidalgo was like, no, this is the stupidest thing ever. This won't work. This is a complete failure. This will be a complete failure. And when that didn't happen, he got all defensive because people don't like to be wrong.
And they also don't like being upstaged.
No.
And there are talk for people... There's talk out there that Favreau and Hidalgo should be put in charge of the Star Wars universe going forward, like Kevin Feige is in charge of Marvel.
Yeah.
And that would literally take all the power away from Hidalgo. So he's basically, I could see in his head, he's gone above his head, and it looks like these guys are usurping him. He's upset. He's angry. So, and rather than deal with it like an adult, he's lashed out and bullied somebody on the internet.
Yeah,
which is just wrong.
So to sum up, this is. Hopefully you're watching Star Wars Theory. I'm not sure you are, but this comes from someone who reacted the way you did, and someone who didn't react the way you did. You're completely vindicated in your upset at what happened, and this was completely unacceptable, and we condemn it. And
and it should be condemned, and it should be condemned by anybody else in the Star Wars universe.
Like, share, and subscribe.
In fact, I reacted. I've probably not moved that quick in the last 7 or 8 months during coronavirus. I moved so fast off the couch when I saw the X-Wing show up. And then when I saw the green lightsaber, same kind of thing. But I think you nailed it on the head there. To just tone down the fan service a little bit, to keep us in suspense of just watching a Jedi on black and white CTV screen, see our heroes' faces, and then the reveal at the end would be the door opening and you see that the lightsabers are green. I think that would have been a slightly better way.
Well, let's move on then to that, because we're going to now go into an open discussion about fan service in general and whether we think it works or not. So we're going to build upon what we started on in the intro. We already discussed a few things off camera so that we had a little preparation moving in here. But just to preface this, again, to me, fan service isn't useless.
And these are only our opinions.
Well, yeah, of course. Always it's just our opinion. Its definition, like I say, is something that's just thrown in to excite and titillate. I don't think that necessarily it necessarily ends there. It can be a good tool.
Yeah, so, when used right, I think fan service works really, really well.
But it also depends on the occasion and the scenario. Like the first thing I have written down here is Endgame. The whole you were the one who brought this up.
Yes.
The battle scene at the end of Avengers Endgame is basically nothing more than a giant vomit ball
of comic hero
of fan service. But so I'll tell you why I think it works. However,
well, and that's just it though. There are bits that work in it, and then there are bits that don't work in it.
For the most part, it works. But that's because this is the culmination of 22 films.
Yeah, I think
so. All of the work and effort that's been put into these films, from Iron Man all the way up to Avengers Endgame, I think it's earned on that merit alone. It's the payoff. The payoff is basically it's fan service.
Oh,
you're going to get a bunch of fan service.
100%
because, like you say, is Captain America saying "Avengers Assemble"
in the middle of a battle?
Does that make sense in the middle of a battle?
No.
Well, no. But does it make sense when you consider that it's a comic book movie where Captain America's phrase in the Avengers is "Avengers Assemble"?
Yeah,
it does.
So, I want to go through some of the fan service that I like and some that I don't. So the first one that you took away from me there was, Don't get me wrong. And again, reaction videos. I love seeing I'll tell you this. When I'm on my own watching shit, I react differently than when I'm in the cinema. Like when I was in the cinema and that scene came in, I'm subdued. I'm not like one of these people in the cinema that screams and yells and hollers and woo and all this shit. But I don't know. That might be just me English heritage. But that one, when I first saw it, I liked. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, you said it, so you're like, Avengers, assemble. Like, Peter Parker and whoever stood on your left probably yelled you, but it wasn't like you were Theoden, Riders of Rohan,
the guys of the
Shield. So everybody at that, everyone's like, what's it called?
What did he say?
Cork's like, hey Mick, what did he say? Who are the Avengers? Korg don't know who the Avengers are.
Yeah, no. When you start to think about it, it does unravel a little bit.
So there was fan service that when I watched it, first time it worked, but then the more I thought about it, I thought, oh, that's a bit silly. But then onto a piece of fan service that is my favourite part of that entire scene is Cap picking up Mjolnir. Because it was being foreshadowed. It felt like a really good payoff because it was earned. Because throughout the movies, we've seen that Thor thinks perfect is Age of Ultron when he wiggles and Thor's face.
But again, like I said, the whole MCU is built around fan service, so it works. It is the primary tool of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, but as I say though, it works and it doesn't work. So that scene where he picks it up and starts kicking ass with it really worked for me. A scene that didn't really work for fan service was the fan service to all the females out there. I have no problem with girl power moments and all that, but when it feels forced, when Peter Parker's beat and Carol Danvers takes it off him, she goes, "Hey, Peter Parker," and he's like, "I don't know how you're going to get through that," and then all the women show up. It's like, she just destroyed a gigantic spaceship flying through it. I don't think she's going to have a problem.
So then, by the primary definition of fan service, that the fan service there is not. It's not to do with anything nerdy. It's they're trying to appease and excite feminists. Is that?
I don't know, because they could have done so well if they wanted to show their strong female characters, which they have lots of. Just showing them kicking ass. They didn't have to have them all show up like. I think you said there's a couple that show up there. You're like, well, you're pretty useless.
So a few seconds earlier, Scarlet Witch is fighting Thanos
and kicking his ass,
and then also you've got the Wasp. She's off with Ant-Man trying to
get the quantum tunneling working. You got Mantis, who poor Mantis.
I could be wrong. It could make sense, but either way, it's a big giant wink to the camera,
and it's jarring. It takes you out of the kind of movie a little bit. A bit like Luke Skywalker's CGI face.
So I think though, ultimately, to kind of like put a cap on that one, pun intended. It doesn't matter with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because that Endgame battle is just a complete fan service.
This is where there's kind of a dual standard, because Marvel fans and people say that fan service in Marvel movies is fine, it's all great and all that, but then Trekkies get absolutely annihilated on the internet when they want to see their Trekgasm, I'm going to call it, and Star Wars fans are the same. It seems like Star Wars and Star Trek fans are treated equally as bad when they say, oh, that's just fan service and shit like that.
Star Trek fans, though, there's a large group of Star Trek fans, and don't at me on this one, but there is a large group of Star Trek fans that all they want is visual continuity. They want their fan service to be in the visual aesthetic and the style. They want, well, to be honest, it's not even fan service really. They don't want that. They just want the continuity. Like, because if you take the J.J. Abrams films for instance, there is a large body of Star Trek fans, Trekkies, who would have loved those movies even more if J.J. Abrams had just put...
If he'd not Abrams it.
Yeah, if he'd have just put the Matt Jeffries original TOS design ship on screen and kept the bridge looking the same, kept everything visually looking the same. And it goes for Star Trek Discovery as well. What did they do in the first season? And they kind of fixed it in the second season, but the first season, the Klingons, completely redesigning the Klingons. Now, you could argue, well, the Klingons have always been getting redesigns.
Yeah, but
Star Trek fans just want visual continuity. The fan service in modern day Star Trek that you see, in my opinion, is quite sparingly used. It's just things like a sound effect here, a little reference there. There's not an awful lot of fan service in modern day Trek.
Well, I don't even see that as fan service. I see that as
it is.
So, let's take the JJ Star Treks. There is nothing wrong with new creators coming in and trying to create their vision of an IP. But those creators have also got to accept that if they miss the mark, they will be crucified by fans.
Yeah, they're going to piss off a lot of people.
Because these are beloved characters and scenarios. That's what happened with The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson had a very different take on it. And again, when I first watched it, I didn't like it, but it's grown on me. But the hardcore fan...
What was that?
Last Jedi.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's the same thing with JJ coming in. You're right. If JJ had come in, we'd have had Chris Pine, who I loved as Captain Kirk. Spock was my favourite. If we'd have had all these actors, Quinto Pine, Simon Pegg, I forgot the Russian's name. Yelchin? Anton Yelchin?
Yeah, Anton Yelchin.
Anton Yelchin. If they'd have come in, played the characters exactly how they'd done, but the Enterprise looked like the Enterprise. The Romulan ship looked like a Romulan ship.
It wouldn't have affected the movie.
No, and all the fans that it pissed off won't be pissed off anymore.
And you wouldn't have had anybody out there going, "Oh, damn! I really wanted them to change the look of the Enterprise." As a Trekkie, I can tell you now, there's no one out there who would have felt that way.
No.
So there's an example then of where you've got good fan service. It's used you're using it sparingly and you're acknowledging the fans and not bowing down to them. You're basically just straight up coming out and saying, "This is your established continuity, and we're going to respect it."
And a good example of that in Trek is at the end of season 1 of Discovery, when the Enterprise shows up. A lot of people said, "Oh, that's bad use of fan service. What do we need the Enterprise in?" Well, hang on. Star Trek was about the Starship Enterprise, and people have got to remember this. As universes grow, this isn't like the Marvel universe where they have years and years of comics and other IPs. Star Wars was about Luke, Han, and Leia. Star Trek was about the Enterprise. That's how. Now, don't get me wrong; it has evolved. But when they brought...
Sorry, but Deep Space Nine
but
Voyager...
Right, again, that's what I said. It's evolved. But it started off being about the Enterprise. So when the Enterprise shows up to save the day, I thought it was awesome. I didn't do a reaction video, shouldn't I? But
I had a very emotional reaction to it myself.
Yeah, I thought it was a good piece of fan service. A lot of people say when you throw a nod or a wink back to what's come before, it's fan service. No, to me that is showing respect for the medium that came before you.
You could almost make the parallel between that and Luke showing up at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian.
Exactly, it's the same kind of thing. Because in season 2 of Discovery, yeah, we got Pike, but we didn't see the Enterprise again until the horrible CGI mess at the end. But we were both on the thing there that they kind of lost the way at the end of season 2 of Discovery.
Yeah, it's another discussion for another time.
But then this is where fan service, if done in the eyes of certain fans, have done incorrectly, they'll crucify you as well.
Well, you're always going to piss someone off.
That Enterprise,
like I said, this group of fans over here hate what this group of fans love. It's just.
This is where I think sometimes people.
That's why you need to use it sparingly.
Yeah. But this example of the Enterprise is where I think people take it too far. When they were commenting that it doesn't look like the Enterprise, its nacelles are swept back, and I'm like, no, man. The moment it showed up on screen, I knew which ship it was. Because just because it's been tweaked slightly, that's fine. What's bad is then in a different medium where they make it 20 times as big as the original, have big fat ass nacelles, and it looks realistically a character. Do you know what the Abrams Star Trek Enterprise looks like? Do you know when you go to the carnival and you ask for a caricature and it shows you in a buggy?
No,
it's the Star Trek caricature buggy.
I have a better analogy. It's like knockoff toys when you go into like Walmart or Lidl.
Yeah,
and like a new Star Trek movie came out, and you see the Star Trek toys, but it's not Star Trek. It's like it's space travels,
space Trek,
space. Yeah. that's what I think of when I think of the J.J.
Space
Abrams.
Wars with Dan Solo.
Yeah, when I
Duke Skywalker.
oh, Duke Dirt Farmer.
Duke Dirt Farmer.
Hey, we got to make sure that all not still
and
copyright
Princess
infringement.
Bayer.
Yeah.
From Bollywood.
Yeah. No, so that to me the Abrams Enterprise is just a knockoff Enterprise, but
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting a little bit off topic. So I think Star Trek is one of the greatest examples for me, modern Trek. Personally, I think that they have respected the source material. Okay, I'm not going to give them like a 10 out of 10 for that. There's some weird shit that they've done, but for the most part, they've tried to make their own thing, bringing in little bits of Easter eggs here and there, sprinkling some salt.
One thing I
Well, no, it's not salt. That's a totally bad
pepper, paprika, oregano,
No, they've been sprinkling like
fairy dust.
Yeah, fairy. Okay, there we go. You know what I'm saying?
So
They've been giving us a little taste here
one
and
thing
there.
I would like Star Trek producers to take on board is that they don't need to change everything up to make it look modern. And The Mandalorian is a perfect example of this. This isn't fan service. This is just good understanding of the material. The inside of the Imperial ships still look like the Imperial ships from the 1970s.
Well, and yes, and if I'm mistaken, they actually used models and in-camera effects for some of the shots of the light cruiser Star Destroyer.
And I understand people who defend how Star Trek has looked over the few years. It's like, well, modern technology, they're not going to make the wooden sets from the original. None of us expect the original set to come back for the Enterprise with the blues and the reds.
There's a large majority out there of people who do want that.
See, and I don't. What I want them to do is give it an updated look, but don't make it look so different that it doesn't fit.
Yeah, in the same way that you're not going to be like an unthinking asshole and say fuck the fans, I'm going to do what I want to do. You also the yin to the yang of that is I'm not just going to bow down to the fans. We're gonna find a middle ground.
Yeah, and make them all wear velour uniforms.
Yeah, because you see, let's move on to Star Wars now. I thought they'd found a middle ground with the Mandalorian. Even when Boba Fett was introduced, I was like, "Oh, this could be."
But they used him so well.
Yeah, they did. They used him sparingly, and they developed his character a little bit.
Well, there's a perfect excuse. See, to me, it's not even fan service there. They're taking a character who was a nothing character, really.
It's a little bit fan service.
Well,
because a lot of people fell in love with Boba Fett, despite the fact that he didn't do anything.
Despite the fact he fell into the
Sarlacc pit and went off screen like a chump. Not anymore.
No,
but
now.
Yeah, it's
my thoughts
thoughts
on doing this kind of stuff. To me, it's not fan service. What it's because our other brother says, "Oh, they're keeping the universe too small. Why don't they bring in new characters?" To me, it's why do you need to bring in new characters when you already have characters that we've never flushed out? Let's flush them out. So they did. They brought Boba Fett in
because he was dead.
Yeah.
Like the Sarlacc belched, made it quite unequivocally clear that he was dead.
But hang on, doesn't Jabba say that you will no C3PO
digest slowly over 1,000 years?
C3PO says that. So the Book of Boba Fett, I'm hoping they do a flash.
It's fine. I'm okay with Boba Fett.
Yeah, but I want to see now though. Now that they're doing the Book of Boba Fett,
show us a flashback of
how he lost his armor. So fan service is useful if
drink every time we say fan service.
Yeah, fan service. So in Star Wars in The Mandalorian, they used it really well. There were some really nice throwbacks. Now, there was some that didn't hit for me, like in Season 1, with the Stormtroopers not being able to shoot the speeder. To me,
another wink at the camera moment.
Yeah, to me, it was stupid.
It's stupid for the same reason the girl power moment in the Avengers.
It takes you out of the game. It takes you out of...
Because it's breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, that was just after they killed Queeg, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the emotional scene of that guy who'd been in the series get killed, they then do this a bit of
brevet. But it's the next episode, so you've had a week to think about it.
So, what else we got in Star Wars? I think...
Well, I actually wanted to just touch on this subject because we were talking about it in the intro, but Luke in The Mandalorian, see, to me, I think he's overused. It's very much and all these reactions to show basically are a screaming alarm bell to me that this is complete 100% fan service, because when you think about how it affects the story and how it applies to what's going on, he didn't need to be that front and center. He didn't need to steal the show like that. I feel that the best way to have fixed that, like I say, we touched on it earlier, but I'm going to go into depth here. We take the scene as it is. You could have replaced him with a different character, maybe a new Jedi. You could have. They didn't. But you could have had that scene without as much of the fight scene as we see it. You could have had it more subdued. Again, as I mentioned, you could have had it being told through the eyes of our main characters, the characters that were here paying monthly for this fucking Disney Plus to watch.
Just The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, yeah, The Mandalorian, Bo-Katan, Moff Gideon. The way that he's afraid and whatnot.
That was one of the best parts of the scene.
Grogu, when he's touching the screen and Mando's looking too, you could have told that story through the cameras. And as you pointed out before we started filming, you really wouldn't have known that lightsaber was green until
the door opened.
Until the door opens and Luke
that
comes
would
walking
definitely, to me.
And also, you would have recast.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had CGI. CGI face is stupid. Stop using CGI face, Hollywood. It's not working.
Unless you get it sorted out and get it good. But it's not good.
No, but
crap.
even then, don't do it, because the philosophical implications of it terrify me.
We're
not going to have actors anymore in the future.
We're just going to have CGI characters. So, so I like that idea when we discussed it off air about it being told more from the reactions, because the reaction of Gideon when he realizes who it is sheer terror, to the point where he'd rather kill himself than get captured by Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. So that to me would have been a really good, but it did what they did put on screen, apart from the face, didn't ruin it for me. I loved it. Did I need to see Luke to get that? No, but did the fact that I have seen it now, am I glad? Yes.
Yeah.
Now
and this basically underscores the whole idea that it's really all about personal taste.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at Rogue One, a fan service story. The best scene of that entire movie is pure fan service orgasm, but I don't care because it's the best scene of the movie.
I remember when I went back to watch it the second time, I watched it with a friend the first time on opening night, and then I came and watched it with family a few days later. I was mostly just kind of like, I was on my phone a bunch, waiting for the scene, because that movie, in my opinion, is just a fan service film. It's all it is.
Yeah.
From the red leader and gold leader, and
so I just want to quickly bank, because I had a thought that I'd forgotten.
You just want to quickly what?
We'll bang okay. So we were talking about The Mandalorian.
Were we?
Yeah. And that last sequence. And this is why I want to tell you why they used Luke Skywalker. You said it could have been any Jedi and all that. This is where fan service could have been used bad. Because if that Jedi had been Ezra, someone like me who's a massive Rebels fan would have been reacting the way I did. But the average person watching The Mandalorian who doesn't know who Ezra Bridger is would have looked at him and gone, who the fuck was that?
Double standards much?
Well, no.
It doesn't bother you with Bo-Katan or Ahsoka Tano.
What do you mean?
The thing you just said.
because those characters, especially...
What do you mean?
No, especially Bo-Katan is going to be a key feature of Season 3.
Yeah. All right.
But like we were on about, a Jedi showing up, taking Grogu, and going, and never seeing him again. Anyway. So if that had been a waste of an Ezra Bridger character.
I want to finish on Star Wars and move on, but real quick, we just got to, because we made this we're preparing notes before the episode.
Let's just quickly go through Rogue One, a Star Wars fan service story.
Well, we had Red Leader, we had Gold Leader, we
had Pig Nose and thing in Jeddah,
and the bum face thing, whatever it is on Jeddah.
Like what?
We've got the Death Star.
We got Peter Cushing, who's been dead for 60 years.
Yeah, we got you talk about CGI face. We've got Darth Vader. We've got A New Hope. Yeah. What is that?
But there's a perfect example of fan service going to. There was no need for Peter Cushing. He just could have been another admiral.
Well, the guy who plays him, who does his body and his voice, I remember him from Rome.
Yeah, he could have.
Rome. He could have played him very effectively. I think he's related to him.
You got those awful fan service scenes of Darth Vader. Don't choke on your aspirations. the entire movie was turned out to be like that. And as I said, the biggest fan service piece was at the end, and it was the best piece for me. But like you mentioned, the horrible CGI of Princess Leia getting the plans and saying, "So what is it, Princess?
It's hope.
It's hope." What? Hang on. Did you just say that because Star Wars Episode 4 is called A New Hope?
Yeah.
And the New Hope in Episode 4 is Luke Skywalker, not some plans of the Death Star.
No, do you know what would have been really bad for fan service in that moment? Is if he comes in and says, "What is that, Your Highness?" And she turns around, looks at the camera, and says, "A New Hope."
Oh, no, what would be best? What is that, Your Highness? It's plans to the Death Star?
Yeah.
What was this entire operation about?
Or if we ever have a movie that breaches in between Episode 4 and Episode 5, we'll have an end scene where someone's like, "What's that? Oh no, the Empire's going to strike back."
Yeah, it was that entire Star Wars movie was fan service gone.
So to quickly wrap up on Star Wars, you know who knows how to handle fan service perfectly, and this is probably not it's not controversial. I'm willing to bet most people haven't even thought about this, and when I say this, you're going to be like, "Oh yeah, actually." George Lucas. Because the prequels, if there's one thing the prequels did manage to do quite well, is they handle fan service well. It's not
For the most part.
it's not in your face. It's not over the top. The most egregious example of fan service to me is the inclusion of R2D2 and C3PO.
Definitely C-3PO. R2-D2, not so much because it's quite organic how they meet him. He's an astromech, a Nubian astromech.
And as I say, George Lucas actually can't, because he knows what Star Wars fans want. So he knew exactly what to sprinkle in.
Yeah, 3PO could have just been a Nubian protocol droid. There was no need for Anakin Skywalker to have built him. So you're right, George Lucas. The only real fan service I can think out of the prequels, and we discussed this as well, we kind of disagreed, was I didn't like all the Jedi showing up at the end of Attack of the Clones. But again, at the time, I didn't think it was real fan service, but as they've released more content, it kind of harms it, because we now know from the Clone Wars that the Jedi were an integral part of the Clone Wars, but they never really fought in mass numbers together. It was always a couple of Jedi with their battalion. Perfect example, Obi-Wan and Anakin are the main topic of the Clone Wars cartoon. And they're always with the same clones. Mm-hmm. Fives, Rex, Cody. And so it's basically 2 Jedi with a battalion of clones. Another battalion of clones with another 2 Jedi. So the way to have made that scene less fan service and show all these lightsabers, that was the whole point of that scene, to get as many lightsabers on the screen as possible.
But I kind of have to disagree. And I got to defend Attack of the Clones. It makes me want to die.
No.
But like that scene does do something in service to the plot. It shows us that Jedi aren't enough. Yeah, because all these Jedi show up, and by the end of it, before Yoda saves the day, there's only like 15 of them left.
They're all getting cut.
They're getting destroyed.
So it asks you then, for the rest of the prequels, where do they keep getting all these Jedi from?
Well,
Jedi clone facility?
No, well, ones that are in training. Yeah. Like, think about it. Well, in World War II, what would you have done to replace dead soldiers? You just kind of rush through.
But Jedi are like elite. Like,
no, but maybe that's why they're not. Yeah. Maybe that's why they're so caught off guard for Order 66. Anyway, we're getting into theory crafting.
Yeah, the way I would have liked it better would have been, obviously, our 2 main heroes are tied up with...
I thought you were talking about R2-D2 for a second there. R2.
No, our 2 main heroes are chained up with Padme. But if it had been Mace Windu and another Jedi, could have been Plo Koon, could have been Shakti, any of them, showed up with a battalion, and Anakin and Obi-Wan's battalion with Cody and all that, and it was just the 4 Jedi and all the clones that took down Geonosis. Yeah. That to me would have been a better use, rather than the fangasm of a billion lightsabers on the screen. Anyway,
I still think my final thought on this one is, for the most part, George Lucas in those prequels knew when to stop.
Oh yeah,
he knew how not to take it too far. It's just a shame he's a terrible scriptwriter.
I was going to say, it's a pity he's not as good as writing script and dialogue as he is knowing when to put in fan service.
James Bond.
Oh, God.
007.
So, 007 has had numerous chances to put in good fan service and put in terrible fan service. 25 times, in fact.
When was the first time, though, that you think that started to get incorporated? Because if you go back to Connery era, most of those films were all standalone individual films that built upon the previous. There was rarely any references to the previous.
So I think towards the end of Connery's era, and near enough all of Roger Moore's era, James Bond was a spy. And in the first few movies, he is a spy. And he gets really simple gadgets. He gets like exploding pens, a watch that can has a laser in it or is magnetic.
Car with rockets that fire out of the headlights.
No, that was GoldenEye. That was the first time we kind of saw that thing, which was I think 3 or 4 movies
Doesn't the DB5 have like machine guns on it?
Yeah, that's not GoldenEye. That's Goldfinger. I meant.
Oh, okay.
So that's but that's what I mean though. That was getting towards the end of Connery's. And
which one's the rocket pack? Is that from Russia with Love?
That's Thunderball.
Oh, Thunderball. Okay.
But again, the rocket pack though, that was a real rocket pack and a real stunt, I think.
Yeah, but and again, none of this is really fan service at this point.
But as Bond went on, it was like, how do we keep feeding these fans who are hungry for more Bond gadgets? I know. We'll just rather than make the Bond gadgets more realistic, we'll make them as crazy as fuck. And it all culminated in Pierce Brosnan's Die Another Day when he had a frigging car that could vanish. It's like, what?
You know, we actually have technology that's coming close to being able to do that, though.
Yeah, 20 years after Die Another Day was made.
So?
It was just...
That's like picking on Star Trek for having flip phones in the 60s.
Yeah, but Star Trek sci-fi. This is supposed to be a serious spy film.
I think 007 can be considered slightly... it's mild science fiction.
Unfortunately, Roger Moore's entries into the Bond franchise started off really well.
I think Ian Fleming, though, as a writer, was he was keen on bringing some of this sci-fi, contemporary sci-fi stuff into it, yeah.
But the Roger Moore, they get more and more wacky and stupid to the point where they're having a laser fight, Star Wars-esque Moonraker on a space station. Yeah. And that's at the point where you're trying to use fan service as a one-up on the last movie, and it's just like, it just doesn't work.
GoldenEye did it best, because you have that scene with Q, where you're seeing all the old gadgets, and it's like, oh, does this still work? And it's the rocket pack.
Yeah.
And then
it's like, what does this do? That's my lunch.
It's like, don't touch that. It's a Subway.
But again, though, looking GoldenEye, what are the two main... what are the two main gadgets he uses?
He uses his watch laser.
Exploding and his exploding pen. And in fact, the watch laser was so perfect that it was one of the levels to get out of in the game. You had to cut the hole in the train. So they went back. So in the space of 3 movies, they went from going back to nice, simple stuff and showing good fan service as a wink and a nod to the old guard in GoldenEye. And by Die Another Day, they'd been eating peyote and smoking mushrooms.
Which is why Casino Royale, on the other hand, is almost, in my opinion, probably the textbook go-to bastion example of how to use fan service. Because think about it, every single piece of fan service in that movie is a slight little dose of fan service here and there. Like the biggest example for me is when he's pissed off because he's lost in the poker game, and he goes over to the bar and he's like, "I'll have a vodka martini." He's like, "Is that shaken or stirred, sir?" And he's like, "Do I look like I give a damn?"
See, you're right.
That's clever.
And even that movie has my favorite part of fan service. Actually, was building all the way to the end, because not once in the movie do you hear the Bond theme.
Well, no, it's kind of there.
That's what I mean.
Subdued.
It
builds up and builds up until you finally get it at the end.
It's not that it's there. It's like they play maybe 3 or 4 notes of it, and then it goes into something different. But then right at the end, he shows up in his tuxedo with his gun and says, "Bond, James Bond," and the music's on. That's great fan service.
That begs the question, because when does this cease to be fan service and just become like a catchphrase? But it's Bond, James Bond, because it's going to happen in every single Bond film.
I know, and it's weird because that was obviously, I'm guessing that was something Sean Connery threw in. But I don't. When people
first time he says it is in Doctor No when he sits down at the
back rack table.
Yeah.
But I don't. When people say, "Hey, what's your name?" I don't go, Jones, Matthew Jones.
Well,
no one introduces himself like that.
It depends if you're at like the CRA or something, or the registries, or the DMV as they call it in America.
What's your name?
Last name Jones.
Yeah, but they ask you for your last name. Yeah. You don't introduce yourself.
So I think we're running out of time here. We've pretty much talked about everything we could as far as nerd culture when it comes to fan service. The only thing we didn't really touch on was the Lord of the Rings franchise, which ultimately there's not really a lot to discuss on that one.
One half of that is perfection. The other half is all fan service.
It's complete fan service. Yeah. So, but of course, we're talking about the Hobbit trilogy.
I think that's all we need to say on that one.
So I guess we should wrap up. So final thoughts, I guess. What do you think the point really is of fan service? Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, so to me, the point of fan service is the whole point of making a movie. Yes, there's the artistic input that as a creator you want to create something, but you're creating specifically movies, same as music, you're creating it for your fan base. So if you go out there and create a movie that is nothing what your fan base wants, it will tank. And it's very obvious to see it when this happens because the box office don't lie. If it's crap and it's not what the fans want, people don't go watch it. But then on the flip side of that, you try and appease every single fan, Rise of Skywalker, you still get the same thing. It upsets so many
fuck someone off no matter what.
It upsets so many people. So you have to find that very fine balance where you as a creator are putting out your own product, but you are paying either homage to stuff that's come before, you're showing respect to the fans, and recently we talked about it in this podcast, The Mandalorian to me is doing a very, very good job of that.
And realistically, the only way you can avoid or eliminate fan service altogether is stop making reboots, sequels, and all that.
Well, yeah. Well, perfect example, look at Christopher Nolan. Most of the stuff he does, apart from the Dark Knight trilogy, are singular new movies where there is no fan service because there's no fans until they watch it and go, wow, that's fucking awesome. And then as a clever director, he never goes back to it and never can get called out for bowing down to fans or bowing down to a production company or a studio. He does his own thing, and it's either loved or it's hated.
And to me, I think I already mentioned it earlier, we got to accept, for as long as we're going to make sequels and reboots, you got to accept a certain level of fan service. And if utilized correctly, to me, it's an essential tool to making these films. The Goldilocks zone, right?
Yeah, like we said, a perfect balance.
Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
I just think the number one thing that fans need to take away from this, and anybody listening, is if there is something in a movie you don't like it. You don't need to get upset. You don't need to get defensive. You don't need to get angry on social media. You don't need to beat down somebody else who likes that aspect of it.
Well, yeah, to come full circle back to Star Wars theory and what happened with him and Pablo Hidalgo, it's okay to have and share emotions about these things.
That was his raw response to that scene. Good on you. If you thought he was an idiot for that, fine. But keep that shit to yourself. So, as I say, fan service, we both agree we need it. It just sometimes either needs to be tempered and reeled in, and at the right time in the movie.
And of course, we're doing an amazing job about that, starting a YouTube channel all about talking about nerd culture and fan service and all that.
Well, that's what... To me, if you're making stuff that is not for the fans, then one, you're wasting the studio's money, and two, what's the point?
At the end of the day, is it hurting anybody?
What's the point?
Yeah. Is it hurting anybody? Then it's fine.
No.
If it's hurting someone, then you got to rethink your approach.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it.
So that about wraps it up for tonight. I've got no else to say.
Me neither. I think we finally actually got around to answering the question, what's the point?
Finally, what's the point?
Yeah, so as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you've got something to say, let us know in the comment section below. But until next time, I'm Michael.
I'm Matt. Have a great 2021.
Yeah, and fuck 2020.
Cue the music.